Welcome to March Madness PBA style. This Sunday, the tour is in the home state of the #1 seeded men's and women's UConn Huskies hoops teams. We welcome you to Norwich, Connecticut, and the Go RVing Match Play Championship. Glad you're with us this week. I'm Rob Stone, and a timely format this week as the PBA has replicated the 64-team field of the NCAA men's basketball tournament. Seeded 1 through 64, all the players were win, you move on, lose, you go home. I take a look at my bracket, did okay. #1 seed West Malott losing in the Sweet 16, hurt a little bit, but two high seeds did move on. Randy Peterson moves in to join us right now. Today's final has Chris Barnes taking on Walter Ray Williams Jr., two real legends of the game, but you think one of them has a serious advantage due to today's format.
I really do, and I think that advantage goes to Chris Barnes for a number of reasons. He's got all the momentum in his corner. Look what he's done the last month or so out here. 4 consecutive telecasts. He won just a couple of weeks ago. The other is the format, like you mentioned, Rob. This isn't a one-game match. This is a 3-game total pin match. And how many times have we seen one shot cost Chris Barnes a game on television? Today, not the case. And the last thing is, remember, we're bowling on 2 completely different oil patterns on each lane. And after watching what Chris Barnes did to Mike Wolf last night, advantage Chris Barnes.
Well, speaking of last night, here's a look at last night's Final Four. Semifinal #1 had Chris Loschetter taking on Walter Ray Williams Jr. and a tight one in game #1. Walter Ray Williams Jr. eventually winning it by 10 pins.
Loschetter had a couple open frames, but he managed to stay close.
Game 2, Walter Ray really started pulling away, rolled a 276. His lead after 2 matches was 94 pins.
It was getting away from me a little bit. It was hooking more in the front. It was tighter down lane. I kind of tried to chase what I had all week, which is a mistake. I'm still a little confused, actually. I'm not really sure what I should have done. Just had trouble getting the ball around the corner. When I got around the corner, I got to run away too early. And
Loschetter was less confused in game 3. He won it 186-182, but total pins not even close as Walter Ray moved on to the finals. Semi #2, Mike Wolf taking on Chris Barnes, and what a start for Barnes.
Yeah, how about perfection? Chris Barnes gets up and labels 12 shots in a row, and they all look like that.
So after match #1, Wolf is down 56 pins.
Mike Wolf comes back, though, in game 2, bowls a huge 268 game to get himself back in the match. The only problem, Chris Barnes, he shoots 267. Wolf only picks up 1 pin.
One's not going to cut it, especially with Barnes continuing to roll hot. He took game 3, 257, 229, won it by 83 pins.
The first game, you're trying to wait for the pair to settle down. You got some transition going on, and you look up and your opponent's got the first 9 or the first 10, first 11, first 12, and it's one bad shot there could have made it pretty interesting with 279 going at him. But yeah, that's why he's player of the year. You gotta expect that out of him.
Chris Barnes, your reigning player of the year, and coming into this week's tournament, Chris Barnes was the #3 seed. He moves on to take on the 5 seed, Walter Ray Williams Jr. and Randy Peterson, down lane side with today's finalists.
And most players out on the big tour can't wait for this guy to leave this tour for the senior tour. Walter Ray Williams Jr., the winningest player in the history of our sport at 49 years of age. What's the secret to your longevity?
My youthful looks? No, I don't know. I really don't know. Maybe I do throw the ball a little straighter than most of these young guys, but I mean, the generation before me threw the ball straighter than I did, and a lot of them retired when they were in their 40s. I was expecting to retire in my early 40s, but every year it's like, well, I still feel pretty good. Maybe a couple more years, and who knows, maybe a couple more years after this, too.
Thanks very much. Good luck. Chris, you've been on quite the roll lately. A win just a couple of weeks ago in Columbus, 4 telecasts in a row. What's the secret to the momentum, and how do you keep it going?
Well, I don't know. This is normally rarefied air that only Walter gets to live in. Patrick made 5 in a row earlier this year. Just keep working on the same things I've been working on. Coaching, I think, is a pretty big key for me. Got some stuff put together, and just use that to my advantage.
Thanks, Chris. Good luck. Rob, the reigning player of the year, will take on Walter Ray Williams Jr., who is a 6-time player of the year.
56 tour titles and 9 major victories between Barnes and Walter Ray. They face off for just the 4th time in a title match when we return to Norwich.
Lumber Liquidators PBA Tour on ESPN is brought to you by...
And we welcome you back to ESPN's live coverage of the 2009 Go RVing Match Play Championship, coming away from the Norwich Bowling and Entertainment Center. 3 games, total pins, and 2 different oil patterns.
Right you are, my friend. Chameleon on the left lane at 40 feet. Cheetah on the right lane at 36 feet. Both players will play the extreme outside part of the lane on both of these patterns. Watch for Chris Barnes to constantly stay just to the inside of where Walter Ray Williams Jr. plays. And what he's going to do by doing that is dry up oil to the left of Walter Ray Williams Jr.
The Lumber Liquidators know the woods stats, if you will, for the Chameleon and the Cheetah oil pattern. Neither Barnes nor Walter Ray Williams Jr. have won on the Chameleon oil pattern, but Walter Ray has won twice on Cheetah, including last season in Grand Rapids. Chris Barnes will start as the higher seed on the bench. Walter Ray Williams Jr., the number 5 seed, begins. Red ball at 5. Drops all 10 to get us going in Norwich.
Chris Barnes gets the choice of who starts the match. He decides to let Walter Ray start, which makes Chris finish this game. It also makes him finish in the 10th in the 3rd and final game.
Here is Chris Barnes from Double Oak, Texas. 11 tour title victories, 2 majors. He is your number 3 seed. And he matches Walter Ray with a strike of his own. Again, in the semifinals yesterday, match 1 versus Mike Wolf, Barnes opened up with a perfect game of 300. One of 6 300 games this week. Back-to-back jacks to open up for Barnes.
You can see we have our CATS numbers right below the names there. The CATS is a computer-aided tracking system provided to us by the Kegel Training Center, the official training center of the PBA. We're going to be tracking location and speed, talk a little bit about rotation as well throughout the telecast.
And Walter Ray also opens up with a pair. Walter Ray Williams Jr., no stranger to televised finals. He has made the title match in 88 of his 166 TV appearances coming into today. That's a percentage of 53. Amazing.
Not bad.
Oh, Daddy, we're hot tonight.
And already you see how the players combat the 2 different oil patterns. And if you're sitting at home wondering, well, how are they able to play the 2 patterns similar? That's because they're using 2 different bowling balls in each lane.
Very heavy on that one. And the first challenge of the afternoon, Chris Barnes. But again, you and I were talking earlier today. This is why Chris Barnes likes this type of format, that he can have a bad shot, and it's not going to cost him a game because this is a total pin contest over 3 games.
Right, it's not the end of the world. And if you're wondering why that ball went high, speed-wise, he was right on the money. His first shot on that right lane was 20.1. That last shot was 20.2. The difference was location. First frame, 5.5 board. That frame, 7.5 board. Couple boards left, and that's all it took to leave the big 4.
Barnes bounces back. He has been on quite a tear since the holiday break. You saw that graphic just before he rolled. 10 events, 7 top 10s, 6 shows, and 1 title since the new year. Carry, come on. There. In honor of Walter Ray Williams Jr., that is an opening four-bagger.
What happened, Rob?
Walter Ray is a bit on the old school side. He's not a fan of the ham bone that the kids like. So for him, that was a four-bagger.
Good move.
Yep.
I like it.
But Walter Ray loves the Yahtzee. Man, what a start.
Speed-wise, both players really bringing it right now, up around 20 miles an hour on both lanes. Chris Barnes finds himself in a huge hole after only 4 frames. A double big four strike to start this first game.
Is that faster than you expected for these two?
There's the adjustment. And actually, it may not have been an adjustment at all. It may have just been a better shot. This ball a little right of the last shot. It faces up, rolls out because of that heavy end-over-end roll, and just flushes the 1-3. Chris Barnes looking to get back into this first game. Remember, 3-game total pin match.
Barnes down 38 pins right now. Chris Barnes, this is his 4th consecutive telecast. He won 2 weeks ago in Columbus, Ohio. He's looking to keep that momentum going here in Norwich, Connecticut. Walter Ray Williams Jr. with an early lead. We wrap up match 1 when we return.
Oh, look at that. I just don't seem to sweat anymore.
Everybody sweats, especially now during tax time.
Oh, I don't worry about my taxes. I got people.
People?
For the second straight year, ESPN and the PBA back in Norwich, Connecticut at the Norwich Bowling and Entertainment Center. The Go RVing Championship about midway through match 1 of 3. And Walter Ray Williams Jr., the living legend, already with a 28-pin lead. He has been flawless through 5. And the Walter Ray Williams Jr. versus Earl Anthony argument rolls on. Here's Walter Ray's approach.
I've always considered what Earl did a little better than what I've done. He bowled in about 400 events. I'm like 650, even though I've got a couple more titles than him. I think what he did in that 14-year span has done a little better than my 27th year here. So I've got no problem being number 2 today.
So Walter Ray, number 2 all-time to Earl Anthony. That was voted on this year in the PBA's 50th season. He is number 1 today. Perfection through 7. It was Chris Barnes who was perfect yesterday in his first match of his semifinals.
We are so connected. I was thinking the exact same thing.
That's why we're BFFs. Jinx. Here's the 7. He looked really wide right on that one.
You know, last night against Mike Wolf in their match, Chris was able to use the same bowling ball, 2 different layouts on both lanes. Today, he's using a completely different ball on the right lane than he is on the left lane. The ball he's using on the left lane is what he used last night. And he said to us last night, Rob, if you remember, if I'm able to use the same balls I use tonight, tomorrow, look out Walter Ray. Today, not able to do that.
And here is Chris on why he likes today's format.
Well, the 3 games, one of the things I like best about it, as a field player, sometimes I'm a little slow to get started and pick the right tool to use, and this gives me a little bit more time, and where one shot doesn't cost you the whole tournament. So you get some time, you can make a mistake or 2 and probably still have a chance to win.
Barnes talking about that one shot, and he had that one shot, if you will, in this match in frame number 3, where he had an open frame 8, as we take a look at the Cats numbers for both of our finalists today.
Well, and this is what you have to look at, is what he's done on the left lane. I mean, that's... How about a trip 4 for an 8-bagger? But what Walter Ray Williams Jr. has done, especially on the left lane, location-wise, 3-1, 3-1, 3-2, 3-1. He's in within 1/10 of an inch of every shot on the left lane. I mean, that's sick accuracy.
Come on, cover it.
Only 19 times has there been a televised 300 game. The last, March 18th of 07, done by Ryan Schaefer. Walter Ray Williams Jr. sits down to ponder the 10th frame as he seeks a perfect game. Chris Barnes down 69, but again, this is total pins through 3 matches.
Walter Ray has never done it on television. He's had it done against him 3 times. See, and there's the ball change, and Chris goes back to the ball that he was using last night on that right cheetah oil pattern. And again, the advantage of having 3 games for Chris Barnes is, okay, maybe it was the wrong decision to go with that ball in the right lane. Right now, he's just trying to strike out to shoot 241 and stay within striking distance of Walter Ray.
And Barnes helping himself for the long haul. Again, this is not a sprint. This is a marathon today. But early on, it has been dominated by the man in green. Walter Ray Williams Jr. will be stepping up in a moment for his effort for a perfect 300 game here and a $10,000 bonus complement to the PBA should he achieve that, because he needs more money.
So much riding on this 10th frame besides the 300 game. Now Chris Barnes is going to be in the 240s with 9 or better in this next shot. Walter Ray is not only thinking 300, but he's thinking, wow, if I do bowl 300, I've got a 60-pin lead with 2 games to go. If I don't shoot 300, let's say he goes 9 spare strike, that's 279. Now all of a sudden, it's only a 40-pin lead. 60 sounds a whole lot better than 40, especially with 2 games left.
And I made that comment that Walter Ray needs more money. Joking, he is the all-time money leader on the PBA Tours. Earned over $4 million. Chris Barnes, number 10 on the all-time money list, 1.6 mil. But we step aside now for Walter Ray Williams Jr., voted this year the number 2 all-time greatest bowler in history. He has been perfect through 9. Needs 3 more strikes for a 300 game. Come on, 7-pin. I'm upset, I'll be honest with you.
Man, the only thing that didn't cooperate here was the pin carry. This could have been another strike for Walter Ray. The head pin goes to the sidewall, misses the 7-pin. And again, not only not shooting 300, but losing 20 pins.
And missing the single pin spare.
You gotta be kidding me.
What a crash of momentum.
Yeah, a huge mistake, and something that you rarely see. This is like a solar eclipse. Walter Ray missing a single pin spare.
And Chris Barnes' eyes lit up on that, saying, all of a sudden it was almost a 300 game. Now I'm right back in it. Walter Ray Williams Jr. wins match 1, but it's tight on the backside. We'll talk live to our 2 finalists and talk about the youth of America on the lanes.
This is a photo of our first lumber liquid.
Well, we just saw a shot of Chris Barnes, and we go down to a live shot of Chris Barnes, who's with Walter Ray and Randy Peterson.
Thanks, Rob. Chris Barnes, it looked like an awful lot of adjustments going on in that first game. Talk about it.
Well, there is a lot of transition. The gutter's a little bit tighter today on that right lane than yesterday. So I started out with a 1-inch pin power swing to try and get closer to it. The problem with that is when the ball rolls that soon, if you miss left, it's going high, and that was the big 4. Later on in the match, I got one to the gutter, and that 1-inch pin now it's a little too early. So I went to a resurgence that I can move about 3 left with, and it'll go ahead and continue through it, and hopefully that gives me a look on that lane the rest of the way.
Thanks, Chris. Walter Ray Williams, Jr., you went from perfection to missing the 7-pin in the 10th frame. What happened?
Brain fart. That's what happened to get old. Just a really bad shot. I did that last night in my match with Chris, and I really didn't want to do that, obviously. Chris is too good of a bowler to give him opportunities, and I need to pay attention and throw a lot better shots than that.
Thanks, Walter Ray. Rob, Walter Ray still has a 26-pin lead going into Game 2.
Yeah, but he lost 12 pins with that GAC. PBA.com is your best source for all the latest PBA news, including information about PBA Experience Leagues. The leagues, which are a joint venture between the PBA and USBC, give league bowlers the chance to bowl on the same oil patterns the pros compete on each week. Leagues constantly forming, so head to PBA.com today and click on the Pro Experience League to find a league in your area. After today, only 2 events remain in the season. Up next, we'll show you the exempt cut line for next season. Some interesting names on the outside looking in. Plus, we begin match number 2 between Barnes and Walter Ray Williams, Jr.
This is a
And we welcome you back to the Norwich Bowling and Entertainment Center as we get set for match number 2 of today's championship match. And our thanks to Ken Fontaine and Bob Larson, the co-proprietors here at the Norwich Bowling and Entertainment Center. They always do a good job of taking care of the pros and even the TV folks who are down here in Norwich. Many thanks to them and their entire staff. We get set now for match number 2. Chris Barnes will go first, down 26 pins after match 1. Could have been much, much worse.
Have you ever seen a guy that ecstatic about after losing a game? I mean, Chris Barnes is the happiest guy in the building right now.
Saw Walter Ray Williams Jr. really kind of stewing at himself after that single pin spare whiff. Going after the 7-pin, kind of doing the fake gun to his head and just really very bothered by himself. That one slips right. Still has that fire, there's no doubt about that.
Well, there was a ball change there on the right lane for Walter Ray. After almost bowling a perfect game, he gets up in the 10th, missing the 7-pin, and starts this game going light on that right lane. So all of a sudden, right lane becoming an issue for Walter Ray. You see the location on the left and right lane. The players are playing the right lane, the cheetah pattern, to hook more than the left lane, and that's why you see the location a little bit deeper on that right lane. Notice how much straighter the left lane the players are playing, and that's because it's a longer pattern. 4 more feet of oil, and that's how the players are able to go straighter on the chameleon pattern from the outside part of the lane. More friction and more bounce on the right lane.
Again, the left lane, the chameleon oil pattern, 40 feet. Oil applied in strips. And the right lane, which is where Chris Barnes is right now, the cheetah oil pattern, 36 feet long.
And Rob, all of a sudden when the right lane starts to dry up and the players have to create a little angle, that's an advantage for Chris Barnes because he has a higher rev rate and he can go around the pattern a lot easier than Walter Ray can. Walter Ray's strength is going straight. And it's very interesting because when Walter Ray first came out on tour some 27 years ago, he actually hooked it a lot.
dating back to last game. That now makes 8 straight strikes for Chris Barnes.
Man, are you good with that math stuff? Just another great shot on that left lane. And with the way the right lane, the cheetah pattern's breaking down, I think it's going to come down to who does what on the right lane. There's another ball change for Walter Ray. Tries to go straight and with a lot more speed, and all he does is leave a 4-9 split. And all of a sudden, this match is almost even.
And let's remember, Walter Ray Williams Jr. was perfect through the opening 9 frames of Game 1. And what is going on with these spare conversions? I'm not saying that was an easy one, but for Walter Ray, they usually hit at least something.
Well, he's trying to slide the 4-pin over into the 9, and that's why he whisked the 4-pin. But right now, the issue is what in the world is Walter Ray going to do on the right lane?
Leaves the big 4 on the left.
When he looks really, really flustered and just frustrated.
Things are collapsing for Walter Ray. You go back to his last 5 frames. You have an open frame, spare, strike, open frame, open frame. Ouch. Wow. Again, Chris Barnes was in a huge hole after about 7 frames of match 1. And he has slowly dug himself out of it by throwing nothing but strikes and having Walter Ray Williams Jr. make some pretty serious errors. And Barnes now on top by 20, looking to add to it. Hambone!
What an amazing turnaround. Chris Barnes did what he had to do in the first game to stay close. When it looked like Walter Ray was going to take a huge lead, all of a sudden Chris Barnes is just owning him right now. 30-pin lead, including the last game and the first 4 frames of this game.
Looking to make it 10 straight strikes dating back to game number 1.
Walter Ray's in a lot of trouble. You're right, he is dialed in. 2 weeks ago in Columbus, we saw Chris Barnes bowl 3 games on television, go through the transition and bowl his way to his 11th title. And right now, he's doing the same thing today.
That's a little better. Come on.
There you go, Walter Ray. Time to put the pressure back on Barnes. Our Flomax weekly update.
Wow. All right.
Shines on Walter Ray. Finished 26th 2 weeks ago in Columbus. Is the number 5 seed this week. Oh boy. It's some nice breaks.
Really?
To leave the 6-10.
Wow.
Well, he went from 5 to 8 real quick here. This could have been another big, ugly split. And all of a sudden, a pin comes over, knocks out the 4-7. The 3 goes late, leaves himself with a 6-10. But he needed a strike there to cut into that Chris Barnes lead.
And takes care of a spare conversion, which have been a bit problematic for Walter Ray lately. The conclusion of match number 2 in ESPN's live coverage of the Lumber Liquidators PBA Tour returns. Chris Barnes on top by 40.
Batter's up, and so is Jones, checking the sign to the men's room.
Oh, not the first time. He's going over and over.
Now Johnson's rounding the corner, heading for the men's room.
Going urgently.
You bet. Carter steps out. He was in there a long time.
Stopping and starting. These guys should see their doctor.
Good point. Could be male urinary symptoms due to BPH, an enlarged prostate.
For many guys, prescription Flomax reduces their urinary symptoms due to BPH in 1 week.
1 week.
Only your doctor can tell if you have BPH, not a more serious condition like prostate cancer.
Avoid driving or hazardous tasks for 12 hours after your first dose or increase in dose.
Glad you're back with us as the PBA rolls on from Norwich, Connecticut. Rob Stone, Randy Peterson with you on this Sunday afternoon. Our thanks to Gary Labella, the Vice President and Chief Marketing Officer of Go RVing. I got to get me one of them RVs one of these days. I got enough kids for it, I'll tell you that. Go RVing fires it up on the road. We'll go a little bit south next week on Strong Island, AMF Babylon Lanes in West Babylon, New York. The second to last event of the season, and the last event of the season, you ask, would be the U.S. Open from North Brunswick, New Jersey. A 2-hour broadcast Sunday, April 5th, beginning at 1 Eastern on ESPN. Walter Ray Williams Jr. trying to figure out all of his issues that he's suddenly stumbled on. It began at the very end of Game 1 and has continued here in Game 2. Chris Barnes looking to open up with a six-pack here in Game 2. Crack it open, Randy. I'm thirsty.
Boy, he's making that right lane look easy, and as that right lane starts to break down, Chris Barnes just starts to kind of salivate because he knows that he can create much more room on that right lane because of his strength and power.
It was Walter Ray Williams Jr. who was perfect through 9 frames in game number 1. It was Chris Barnes who was perfect through 6 frames here in game number 2. Again, he had a 300 game in the semis last night, did Barnes. Perfection continues. Leaves the 10. Better, but still not enough.
And that's the issue, because as he tries to go straighter on that lane, he has to move a little bit left. He starts to lose angle, and when he loses angle, he loses pin carry.
Has had some lingering wrist issues this year, particularly when he has to hook it. He gets kind of like a stinger, is how he described it to us, in his right wrist, but said, you know, it felt pretty good this week because there were less games for him to actually bowl due to this format. Again, the format replicating the 64 field of the NCAA men's basketball tournament. For Walter Ray, just his 3rd strike of this match and 3rd strike in the last 9 frames. There's 2 open frames in this second game.
Yeah, and there's another board left adjustment for Walter Ray on the left lane. So, you know, he's back into the pocket. Now it's whether or not can he string some strikes together and try to slow down Chris Barnes a bit.
And Player of the Year not out of reach yet for the reigning Player of the Year, and Chris Barnes has to really win today and the U.S. Open in 2 weeks. Take a look at our Denny's Player of the Year points list. Wes Malott on top, comfortably at 74 points. Should Chris Barnes win today, he will go to 53 points and move over Patrick Allen into 3rd place. The U.S. Open will pretty much decide who your Player of the Year is. Chris Barnes, perfect through 8. We begin the 9th. Just like Walter Ray Williams Jr. in game number 1, Barnes will take a seat and mull perfection. Walter Ray was perfect through 9 in game 1. Barnes ditto here in game 2. is his first pair of strikes here in game number 2.
And Walter desperately needs to strike out to keep himself close. Oh, man. I mean, dare I say it? Chris Barnes is going to bowl another 300 game.
Down 71 pins. That will help.
That's
now, for Walter Ray Williams Jr., you have to say to yourself, look, I had a huge lead in match 1, and I gave it up quickly to Chris Barnes. Things can turn back in my favor in our 3rd and final game.
Well, look at it this way. If Walter Ray strikes out here and Chris Barnes goes 9 spare strike in the 10th frame, it's like Chris giving Walter Ray 21 pins.
Come on, 10. Stubborn. Refuses to drop.
Well, there was a pin blocking for the messenger that was coming over to take out the 10. So bad break for Walter Ray. He's going to be 192. Chris Barnes looking at 300. So talking about 108 pin difference.
Kind of a flippant wave there by Walter Ray as Chris Barnes asks for a re-rack.
Did you mention the last 300 game we saw on television?
We did. Ryan Schaefer.
Ryan Schaefer, 2007.
We also talked.
I think it was in Indiana.
Indianapolis.
That would be Indiana.
Yeah. Walter Ray Williams Jr. has witnessed 3 300 games on television by his opponents. Barnes, 3 strikes away from perfection. We begin his 10th. Guys!
You have no idea how huge that is for Walter Ray.
As now Barnes looking at an open frame here.
Right, now he's going to be in the 260, so 257, 260, 266 if he gets 9 by my count. That's 34 pins that just fell in the lap of Walter Ray.
And I'll admit also, I'm being a little selfish right now, Randy. I've never witnessed a 300 game. I missed Chris Barnes yesterday. And we had 2 opportunities for it today. A 266. Chris Barnes came into match number 2 trailing by 46 or 26. He now leads by 48. This one far from done. Far from done.
Play fantasy baseball this season on ESPN.com. With auction drafts, you can draft the way you want and win your fall classic. Click, draft, dominate, all for free. Go to ESPN.com/fantasy today.
This is a photo of our first Lumber Liquidator store. We didn't have a fancy showroom or an expensive location. Our goal was simply to provide great hardwood flooring at the best possible prices anywhere. Today, as the largest direct retailer of hardwood flooring, we're still not fancy and a bit out of the way, but we continue to have the best hardwood flooring at incredible prices.
2 1/4-inch solid oak utility grade flooring, only 99 cents a square foot. Supreme pre-finished horizontal natural bamboo, just $1.99 a square foot.
Visit your local Lumber Liquidators or lumberliquidators.com.
I never thought I would have a heart attack, but I did. And thank God for Bear Ass.
We welcome you back to Norwich, Connecticut, and the Go RVing Match Play Championship, which is the last of the 5 tournaments that made up the PBA Extreme Swing. It began in November, just outside Detroit, Taylor, Michigan. The Ultimate Scoring Championship, won by Mike Wolf.
And he defeated Mike Scroggins on an oil pattern that was similar to a house shot.
The next stop was the Geico Plastic Ball Championship outside Denver. Jeff Carter wearing the Van Halen jersey, winning his first ever tour title.
And doing it in fashion and beating one of the greatest players of all time, Pete Weber.
The next week, the Atonic Marathon Championship in Indianapolis was won by the man who's on top of the Player of the Year list right now, Wes Malott.
This was a 54-game total pin tournament, bowled on all 6 of the lane oil patterns. This is the most grueling event of the season.
Then it was on to Columbus, Ohio for the Don Johnson Buckeye State Eliminator, which was won by Chris Barnes.
Yeah, and he used a little teamwork to do it with roommate Mika Koivumiemi, the righties, ganging up on the left-handers Mike Scroggins and Rhino Page.
The top 8 players from the Extreme Swing point list qualify for this summer's Geico PBA Team Shootout, which will be hosted by Six Flags in New Jersey. And here are your top 8. And if we're talking extreme swings, how about the extreme swing this title match has taken? Essentially a 74-pin swing from match 1 to match 2 in favor of Chris Barnes, who started down 26 and is now up 48. Here's Randy standing by with our 2 finalists.
Thanks, Rob. Walter Ray, it's like deja vu in reverse. Just when it looked like you were going to bowl 300 the second game, you completely lose the pair. What happened?
Well, I wasn't totally comfortable with the right lane anyway, so I tried something different the first frame, and obviously that didn't work. And then went back to my other ball and got a bad split break. I mean, that wasn't a horrible shot, but then the left lane, all of a sudden, it just started hooking like crazy, and I had to make a slight adjustment, but hopefully I got it figured out, and Chris will let me back in the match.
Now, down by 48, what adjustments specifically have you made going into the title match?
Well, the right lane, I'm playing about the same. The left lane, I've had to move my feet about a board and a half and move my target in about a board and a half, and you know, hopefully that'll work the rest of the match. Unfortunately, Chris is playing a little left of me, so what's left of me is his dry area, so I don't know.
All right, Walter Ray, good luck. Chris, you have a shot at 300. Got him in the 10th frame, left a big split. What was going through your mind then?
Well, it's the same shot I made in the first game. You know, I get the ball in the swing just a little bit quick, and it gets down in the lane too fast, and it's left. And, you know, I'm using a lot of surface trying to even out the lane so that the draw off the gutter still plays, but you can't miss left when you do that. So it was a bad shot. But the move worked, and I'm comfortable with that, and I may have to inch left another half or one on that lane. The other lane, there was some hook there. I moved a couple boards that game. I have another ball I can go to that will return more if the one, you know, if the resurgence gets too early and flattens out, I can go to a momentum swing, and that'll give me more back end.
Were you surprised at all at how quickly this match turned around?
Yeah. I mean, I knew in practice he was having a hard time in the right lane, but he does what Walter seems to always do, and he figured it out and throws 4 straight shots in that lane, and you're like, here we go. And you know, I was surprised to get some breaks. I really wanted to take advantage of them. Did in the middle of the game, and then let it off the hook there at the end.
Thanks, Chris. Thanks. Rob, one more game.
One more to go. Time now for our Geico Championship recap. Game number 1, Walter Ray Williams Jr. stormed out of the gates. An opening 9-bagger. He won at 267, 241, up 26 pins. Game number 2, Walter Ray Williams Jr. struggled after that single pin miss at the end of game number 1. Barnes, just like Walter Ray was hot in game 1, was equally smoking in game 2. He was perfect through 9. Walter Ray Williams Jr. leaving the big 4. He's got big issues right now as Barnes threw a 266 to Walter Ray's 192, which means Barnes is now up 48 pins. Up next, and commercial-free, the 3rd and final match of our Total Pin Championship. Chris Barnes on top by 48 pins.
I ain't never seen a winner this bad.
Jerry lost half his herd last week.
I don't see a way through it.
Nope.
Excuse me, doll.
We welcome you back to Norwich, Connecticut. Our 3rd and final game of our title match in 2 weeks. We pack our bags and head down to North Brunswick, New Jersey for the 66th edition of the Lumber Liquidators U.S. Open, the final event of the PBA season. Again, a 2-hour window on that one, coverage beginning Sunday, April 5th at 1 Eastern. Walter Ray Williams Jr. will begin our 3rd and final match.
Come on.
He is down
Try to make it interesting.
48 pins. And that is how you start when you're down 48. By no means has the title been wrapped up by Chris Barnes.
Man, come on.
here is Barnes, who again had a perfect game through 9 frames in the last game, and then went 8 open frame in the 10th.
Remember the last shot he threw on that right lane when he was perfect, left the big split, so you knew there was an adjustment coming. They got a couple balls of practice during commercial. Chris Barnes will continue to move to the left and open up that right cheetah pattern. Remember, 2 different oil patterns, cheetah on the right lane, chameleon on the left. Take a look at the Cats with location and board. Chris Barnes, spectacular in the last game. He only had 1 ball that was under 20 miles an hour, and just barely under 20. It's great speed control.
Messenger does the job, kicks the 10, his first strike in our final game.
And Rob, there's that power advantage. Watch the pin action of this shot right here. This is a really fast Messenger. The head pin goes to the sidewall and just caves into 10.
That Messenger came in like it was running from the cops.
Baby,
WRWJ didn't care for that one in the beginning, but he likes the result. Back-to-back jacks for Walter Ray.
Boy, and that's a good sign when you're yelling and screaming after you let go of it, and he almost leaves a stone 8. You see the ball taking out the 8 pin. And I think in Walter Ray's mind right now, he's thinking, man, 279 or better for me to win this tournament now.
Get up.
No Messenger to be found this time.
Wow.
All right, so a spare here. The mindset is, okay, that's my only miss.
Let's also remember in the 10th frame in game 1, Walter Ray missed a single pin conversion. It was the 7 pin, this the 10.
Yeah, and that's a great point because that's another 11 pins. You got to think, well, if he strikes out, he shoots 300 to 240. I mean, you can do the math a few different ways and come up with 39 pins, which is what he's trailing by now.
Barnes led by 48 coming into game 3. It's at 39 right now as he begins his effort in the 3rd.
Well, there's something you don't see very often from Chris Barnes is a weak 10 where the 6 pin just kind of lays in the right channel, kind of DOA. Chris Barnes with all that power, that real heavy roll. See the 6 pin just kind of die there? And a lot of times what happens, because his roll is so forward, when he starts to use too much surface, the ball will actually lose energy as it hits the pins.
You know, it's interesting the approach here in this total pin format. Chris Barnes with let's consider it a healthy 48 pin lead coming into this game, but it's a lot like the March Madness that this tournament has replicated. If you have a big lead in that second half, you go out kind of playing defensive and shy. You need to stay gunning and playing your game the whole time. It's be interesting to see how Chris approaches this as we take a look at the other finishers this week here in Norwich. And that's the aggressive type of shot we're used to seeing.
Well, yeah, I mean, instead of, coming in thinking that you're up by 39 or 49, think that, hey, it's 9 or 3. Or, right. I mean, you got to stay aggressive. And Walter Ray has a chance now to cut into that deficit by throwing a strike here in the 4th and 5th frame and really getting Chris Barnes to start thinking about it.
Only talking basketball, you want to get that lead down to under double digits. And I think for Walter Ray, if he can sense, if I can get this into the 20s early on and start picking away at it, I got a real chance.
A real chance.
Barnes has gone spare strike here in the 3rd match. Walter Ray, 3 strikes and 1 spare. Cutting into that deficit gradually but effectively.
Show me that! And another.
This guy doesn't go away, man. He's tough, and that's why he's the winningest player of all time.
And the smile is back on his face, some confidence. We had not seen that smile since the 9th frame of game 1, really. Now, how does Barnes' mental makeup handle this? The lead at 29. Handles it just fine.
Like that?
Just fine.
Such a gifted player. You talk to the other players out here, and if you ask them who the #1 player out on tour is, they all point to this guy right here. And he can play any angle. He can get in and hook it. He can go straight, which I think is a huge advantage for a high rev guy. But given enough games, you can always expect Chris Barnes to get there. He's just making it look easy, and it's reminiscent of what happened a couple of weeks ago in Columbus when his tour roommate Mika Koivuniemi and Chris eliminated the left-handers, and then as the lane started to change, Chris chased the oil pattern to the left and just ran over Mika.
3 in a row for Walter Ray. He's not going away.
Still around 20 miles an hour for Walter Ray, as is Chris Barnes.
Like one little spot just hooks. One little spot. Jeez.
And see, because Chris Barnes can get left of that spot, it's a big advantage for him.
That don't hook.
When Walter Ray moves it into that left, or moves left of that spot, his ball won't react.
Five strikes and 2 9 spares here in our 3rd game.
Walter Ray needs some help from this guy.
Yeah.
He's running out of time. We're more than halfway through this last game. Chris Barnes just looks like he's dialed in.
Barnes working on a 3-bagger, looking for a ham bone here in match number 3. Not saying that's an opening for Walter Ray, but it's a glimmer of hope.
Yeah, and not much, but a little bit. And right there, the stone 9 on a 3-bagger. Chris is ready to just put his foot firmly into Walter Ray's throat. Instead, stone 9.
For Walter Ray to get back in this, Randy, you need a big gap by Barnes, and you need to pretty much strike out.
Absolutely, without question. Walter Ray can strike out and shoot 258. Barnes is in the 2 teens right now. A big 4 split or a Greek church split. He loses count and an open frame. He would be back in the 2-0s, 190s. And all of a sudden, Walter Ray is right back in it. So
that's Barnes. Just stay clean.
Stay clean, make his spares. He's at 2-teen right now.
It's not great timing.
Well, see, and now all of a sudden, Chris Barnes saying, okay, staying clean's not enough because Walter Ray can still shoot 258. He's only at 2-teen, 218 to be exact. That's exactly 40 pins.
And the lead is at 39.
And the more that kind of stuff happens to Barnes, where he's flushing shots that aren't striking, as long as Walter Ray can strike, all of a sudden the pressure is going to swing. But the question is, can Walter Ray strike out?
He's working on a 9 spare, has thrown 5 strikes here in the 3rd game. Make it 6 strikes.
Big shot coming up, though, on the left lane, Rob Stokes. His last shot on this left lane I think he's been suspect on this left lane. You've heard the comments he has made about the left lane, that one little spot. Walter Ray needs his best shot right here. And there's the weak 10.
Pinch right of that forepin. That makes sense.
Exactly right. A little bit right of that, he hits the dry part of the lane, it overhooks. A little bit left of that, it goes 60 feet and the ball won't hit. Now the best Walter Ray can shoot is 238. So now, Rob Stone, you're back into the stay clean scenario. I win my 12th title.
And second consecutive title. And tightens things up in the Player of the Year points race. With the win, again, Barnes would move up into third as he tries to defend his Player of the Year title. Was that one?
Stand up.
Dancing with the gutter.
Wide right, almost left the bucket, and the 2-pin almost fell out of the 2-4-5, which would have made it a much more difficult spare.
Blows that one up.
Okay, no chop, covers it nicely. Just a mark.
It hasn't been the prettiest of games for Barnes, but he's doing what he needs to do to win.
Come on, baby!
There's a winner.
Yeah!
There's a winner.
He came into this third and final game with a 48-pin lead, has only given a hint of it back.
You can clap now.
Well, he got the messenger when he needed it. Tour title number 12 for Chris Barnes. And for the first time in his career, he has won back-to-back events. Rhino Page won last year here in Norwich. This year, it goes to Chris Barnes.
Another great tournament for Walter Ray, and he just shows you that at 49 years of age, he's still competitive out here. And in his own words, as long as he can stay competitive, he'll continue to bowl out here. October, he'll turn 50. He will bowl senior events as long as it doesn't conflict with his busy schedule. But his main focus is out here on the big tour.
And that busy schedule includes horseshoes. And you see some of those lucky horseshoes on his jersey. And he is very focused on that sport as well. He's telling us that if he doesn't make the TV show next week in West Babylon, he's going to drive up to Hartford, Connecticut and take part in a horseshoe tournament. Now what's going to be interesting here is in this 3-game finals, Walter Ray won 2 of the games. Right? He won Game 1 and Game 3, but that huge loss in Game 2 gave Barnes the title.
Yeah, he lost the total pin game, and that's really the only one that matters by 31.
So 722 to 693.
Okay, my math is wrong.
29-pin win.
That's what I meant.
For Chris Barnes. Barnes' noble book it, his 12th tour title, and we'll hear from Chris Barnes when our live coverage returns to Norwich, Connecticut.
We feel your passion.
And we welcome you back to Norwich, Connecticut, and ESPN's continuing live coverage of the PBA. The Go RVing Match Play Championship has just been won by Chris Barnes. Your runner-up, though, Walter Ray Williams Jr., standing by with Randy Peterson.
Thanks, Ron. Walter Ray, you made a great run at him that last game. Talk about that final game. Take us through it.
Well, the left lane started hooking on me in the second game, and so I was trying to get a little bit better line on that. The right lane, I was kind of close to it, just a matter of getting the brakes on it. Unfortunately, I didn't get all the brakes I needed. Chris bowled a lot better than I did, and unfortunately, the second game's what killed me. For the best 2 out of 3, I might have snuck in there, but that wasn't the game today.
You know, we talked about it a little bit yesterday, and the fact that, you know, your big advantage is going straighter, or being able to go straighter than a lot of the players out here. When you bowl against a guy like Chris Barnes, his ability allows him to go straight at times, and that's what really was a disadvantage today. You talked about not being able to hook it enough. Any changes in the future for you, maybe practicing or working with a two-handed toss? I know you were talking a little bit about that.
I fooled around with it a little bit when they put all the oil they put out on tour for all these guys that hook the ball, because they kind of need it. I just feel like I'm kind of swimming in circles because I can't get the ball to hit very well. If they let me play on one pair of lanes all the time and not have to move, but when I got to follow these guys and they're playing 2 areas left to where I would rather play, it's not that I can't play inside. It's just there's just not enough hook for me to get the ball to hit the way I want it to. I got to slow down and try to get the hook, and it just doesn't hit very well. So who knows? I don't know if my wrist will let me do that, but I might fool around with it a little bit.
How do you prepare for next week and the following week at the U.S. Open?
Well, I'm not going to cut my throat, so.
Thank God. Thank you very much, Walter Ray.
All right, thanks.
So Walter Ray won game number 1 and game number 3, but falling behind by 48 pins in game number 2 was his Waterloo. 2 weeks away from watching Norm Duke try and defend his U.S. Open title, the 66th edition of the Lumber Liquidators U.S. Open, 2-hour televised window, Sunday, April 5th, starting at 1 Eastern, right here on ESPN. Duke, number 2 in the Player of the Year points list, still has a shot at taking it over. When we return, we talk to our winner, Chris Barnes.
I completely understand, Dave. That's why.
We'll hear from our winner in just a moment, but we reflect back on Chris Barnes' day. He was down 26 pins after game number 1, but stormed out of the gate in game number 2. Walter Ray Williams Jr. leads the big 4 in the 4th frame. He would leave that an open frame. Barnes looking for perfection. Flawless through 9 frames. That's his effort in the 10th, so no 300 game, but he did roll a 266. Game number 3 with the substantial lead gets the messenger to kick. Barnes with 3 in a row in the 4th, 5th, and 6th. And then needing a strike in the 10th to close out, gets the messenger for the win and the victory. And now we hear from the winner, standing by with Randy.
All right, Chris, you know, watching today, it was very reminiscent of what happened a couple weeks ago in Columbus when you and your roommate Mika Koivuniemi kind of blew the oil pattern apart, but as the lanes dried up, you migrated towards the center of the lane and then just owned him. Was that the same case today?
Well, that was kind of what we were doing. We were both playing the same part. I played a little bit further right than I would have really was comfortable on this right lane, especially to begin with. And then as it started to hook, the left lane, stayed great for me the whole time. I think that ring 10 was the only thing I left on it. This right lane was trouble for both of us. I was losing it again. I was going to have to go down to something that was a higher response ball. I'd have to go to a power swing or something to get it to back end more. But we ran out of frames before I ran out of pins.
Chris, congratulations. Thanks very much.
Thanks.
Chris Barnes wins his 2nd title of the season and 12th of his career. Next Sunday, special start time, 2 Eastern here on ESPN, the Bowling Foundation Long Island Classic. Chris Barnes, for the first time in his career, has now won back-to-back events. He is now up into 3rd place in the Player of the Year points race, trailing only Wes Smollett and Norm Duke with just 2 tournaments to go. And again, the U.S. Open looming in 2 weeks. Big points in the Player of the Year point race available for that one. Chris Barnes, 722 over Walter Ray Williams Jr.'s 693, a 29-pin total win for Chris Barnes. For Randy Peterson and our entire crew, I'm Rob Stone. Congratulations to Chris Barnes. Enjoy the women's basketball tournament.